Hi guys, happy Monday Maker. This is without a doubt my favorite way to start the week. I get to hit the ground running first thing on Monday morning. I know that I'm going to get to come and hang out with you guys. I put together a really fun project or projects, and it is always something to look forward to. I'm excited. How are you all? How was your weekend? Hey Wanda, hey Katie. Rosanna, how are you, darling? I love your new mannequin. So Rosanna just bought a mannequin to hang her long style designs on because it's a little bit easier. The little bust things that we use, these guys, these are okay for the most part. A lot of times I will work on those, but the mannequins are really tall and obviously more like the size of a person. And you can get a better idea of where your long necklaces are going to fall on a body. So I recommend that. I've got one. I use it when I do long designs, but I keep it in the other room just because there's not a whole lot of extra room in here. But it was a really good idea. So if you guys are interested in getting one, I would say do it. I wish I could give you an idea of where to get one that was on the cheap, but I don't really know where to get them. But if you're thinking about it, I definitely say go for it because it's definitely worth it. If you make a lot of jewelry, it's worth it. So how is everyone? Lots of people rolling in hot today. We got Joan. Hey, Joan. I didn't think I would see you today, Joan. Kathy's here. Jane is here. Carolyn's here. Wendy. Everybody. Hooray. It is going to be a fun show tonight, you guys, because we're playing with fairy silk, and I always get excited when we get to use fairy silk. It's a good thing to use and add, and it just kind of, I don't know, it sparks my creativity. I start playing with it, and then I think of a million different things that I could possibly do with it. And tonight we are actually going to execute a couple of those things. So we're going to put together some earrings using the fairy silk, but more importantly, what we're doing is we're creating some components with the fairy silk, and the components, I'm going to use them as earrings, but they can be very easily transformed into something else. You can use them as links in your bracelet designs. They can be links in your necklace designs. They can be anything you want them to be, really, which is super, super cool. And the fairy silk is absolutely beautiful, so you can't go wrong, right, with that. If you guys are interested in the fairy silk, there is a whole cord section over on the Jesse James Beads website. Don't forget to check out the weekly deals that are going on this week. Those always change on Mondays. And unless you missed, well, in case you missed my little mic check over on the Secret Stash group, which some of you did, and that's fine. There are 16 brand new bead mixes that were released on the website today. You guys, it's new bead week. What? Yes. Do you even know what that means? That means new beads every day. Yes, I love it when that happens. So there are new things happening pretty much every day. And that is so exciting when it comes to jewelry making, right? We live for things like that. So it is going to be a great week. There is so much stuff lined up this week, you guys. So tonight we're working with fairy silk and some of the new mixes. Tomorrow over on Dress It Up Buttons, I am showing you guys how to take shank style buttons and turn them into earrings with some wire. Super cool. I'm excited about those. I'm excited about everything, but what else? Let's see. Wednesday is my day to kind of regroup, work on some things behind the scenes. Thursday, we have Facebook Live at 11 a.m. And then there might just be another Facebook Live there on Thursday evening. Perhaps, maybe. We'll have to wait and see. And there's a magical mystery bead box unboxing coming up, and it's going to be a full jam-packed week. So you guys buckle up. It's going to get beady. It is time. So let's get to it. Let's not waste any more of this great beady time that we have with each other, and let's get right to our project for today. So for today's project, one of the mixes that I am using is a Design Elements mix, Glitz and Glam. And oh wow, you guys, this is so pretty. So, so pretty. So there are a lot of really awesome things in this mix. Let me move this up just a little bit. All right, so, okay, first of all, just the first little glances of this, it looks beautiful in a big pile, just like that. But one of the very first things that popped out at me when I very first opened these up were these flowers, which are absolutely beautiful. These are so pretty and so summertime appropriate, right? I mean, honestly, you could rock these in the holidays as well. This would work all year round. This just, I don't know, there is something about stark white that really, I don't know, it's just a pop of non-color, as it were, that really just kind of freshens everything up and makes everything just super classy. I don't know, you can't go wrong with white. Okay, so those are gorgeous. There are some boho beads in here that are gorgeous as well. You cannot go wrong with boho beads. There are these beautiful white tassels. There are cage beads. I love these little mixes because there's always so much good stuff in here. Look at the little hearts. These are awesome. Little hearts with the little crystals in them. How pretty is that? Definitely glitzy and glammy. And that is not all. There are some little white roses. These guys, there are miracle beads that I am absolutely hooked on right now. I may or may not be using some miracle beads tomorrow if you want to come hang out again. I love miracle beads. They are awesome. So one of my very favorite things in this entire mix, though, second to the flowers, are these guys. These are super, super special. I don't know what you call this. It's almost like a miracle bead, sort of. It looks like it is glowing from within. It is just the prettiest. And the finish on this, it's almost velvet-like. It is so soft. I don't know. I'm a huge texture person, and these are just really, really super, super soft and just really, really beautiful. So not only do they look good, but they feel good too. Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan. There's some little moons in here, some little bows, these cutie patootie little guys, these little rondelles. There are some clear rondelles. So this is a really beautiful mix that, I don't know, it just immediately inspires me. Like, there are so many pieces of jewelry just waiting to happen in this mix, but we are going to mix this with some color. So we're going to use the Ocean Adventure Fairy Silk. And that's the great thing about white, is that you can literally mix it with anything, right? You can add this to orange, red, brown, black. I mean, literally any color of the rainbow and any color of the fairy silk that's available over on the website. So you definitely can't go wrong, like mixing this with something else, right? So this Ocean Adventure is one of the, it's like it's been dyed and it's been dipped in several different colors. So you have like this really beautiful, like dark oceany green blue, right? And then it gets a little bit lighter. You've got some lighter blue in here. And then it goes right on back down to that green. So it's got a mix of color in it that I think is really going to look cool with what we're going to do with it. Okay, so let's take these two things and turn them into something that is going to look very similar to all right, now you're just going to have to hang with me now. It's going to look very similar to a little cocoon. And so, yeah, when I was playing with the fairy silk earlier, I did this with white fairy silk. And I showed it to Sarah, and she was like, that kind of looks like a mummy. And I have to agree with her. It does look very much like a mummy. I added some beads to the outside of this, and it did change it just a little bit. But not only does it look like a mummy, but it kind of looks like... it looks like a, you know, a chrysalis, like a caterpillar has just made himself at home, and he is going to be a butterfly. But when we use the blue and we add some extra beads to this, I think you'll see it's not going to look nearly as much like a mummy as it is going to be a really beautiful component. Not that there's anything wrong with the white, because you definitely could rock this. It's not going to look like a mummy, you guys. It's not. But just at first glance, yeah, it kind of does. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take some 22 gauge wire and we're going to create these funny little components. Let me show them to you so you'll see what we're going to do. Look at this guy. This is going to be the core of this. Weird, right? Yeah, I know. This is a weird one. And this is one that your wire wrapping, like even if your wire wrapping is awful, which it's not, right? It's not. You guys are always so hard on yourselves. Your wire wrapping is great. Even if you are not confident in your wire wrapping, you're going to be able to create this little component and then cover it all up with your fairy silk and nobody will ever know the difference. So if you're not confident, this is a good one to kind of get you out of your chrysalis, if you will. out of your beady little shell. Okay, so we're going to take some 22 gauge wire. I'm going to cut, I have my weird ruler out tonight, you guys. I'm going to cut, let's see, about, let's cut about 5 inches. We're definitely not going to use all that, but let's start there and see what happens, shall we? I like to have at least a good base measurement to get started with. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a wrapped loop on one side, and we are going to use our chain nose pliers. We are going to come down here. Donna, I guarantee you they are not horrible. I bet you money that you're just being super hard on yourself, right? I know you are. I know you are. You guys are so good at wire wrapping and everything else. Let me tell you, you guys, I get to look through your pictures that everybody posts. You guys are amazing. Just so you know, don't sell yourselves short. All right, so we're going to come down on that wire about 1.5 inches. Okay, we're giving ourselves plenty to work with. We're going to bend the wire 90 degrees, make ourselves one of those little backwards 7s. I'm glad you're laughing. Thank you. All right. Now we're going to come in with the round nose pliers and we're going to go up and over the top barrel of those round nose pliers. Okay, working on that wrapped loop. We're going to roll those out of the way and take that wire over to the other side. So when I take this off of the tool, this is what it looks like. It's important to move the pliers out of the way so that you can go ahead and take that wire over to the other side so that there's room to do that, okay? Putting it back on the tool and switching hands, and I'm going to do some wire wrapping. Now guys, if your wire wrapping doesn't look good, or if you think it doesn't look good, because I promise it does, this part right here, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. We're going to cover all that up. Nobody is ever going to see it. So if your loop is wonky or your wraps are wonky, it doesn't make any difference. Trust me. It's all going to disappear into this design and you will be good to go. Okay. Okay. So now we are going to make a real measurement here. And this is going to depend on what size component you want for this. I only want about 1.5 inches long of a component. So I'm going to start the measurement at that first wrap. Basically, I'm going to start measuring at after the loop, okay? And by the way, you can totally do just standard loops instead of wrapped loops if you want to. Totally up to you. You don't always have to do the wrapped loop, okay? All right. So when I put this down on the ruler, I'm not going to start that measurement at the top of the loop here. I want to hang that off of the edge, and I'm actually going to start measuring where my wire wraps start. If you do just a standard regular loop without the wraps, just underneath, okay? And then we want to come down here to the 1.5 inch mark, and I'm just going to grab, I know it's hard to see with my hand in the way, but I'm going to grab that wire right there at 1.5 inches. And pick the wire up. Don't move those pliers, okay? Then I'm going to make the bend in the wire, and I haven't moved at all. So now I know for sure that the space between this loop and the next loop that I create, that's 1.5 inches right there, okay? So whenever you're going to measure, make sure, depending on what size component you want, that you start at the bottom of the loop, not up here at the top of the loop. That's basically the lesson here, okay? Okay, which is super important if you're going to make more than one of these and you want them to match. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right, so again, I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers. This is weird because we're not filling this up with beads or anything at this moment. Okay, And so I'm going to take the wire, okay, it's running between the barrel of my round nose pliers, going up and over the top barrel of the pliers, okay. We have this funny little shape going on, right? This is the shape. If I take the pliers away, this is what we've got. Okay, so notice the bottom barrel of the pliers is over here in the way. So I can't take the tail end of this and bring it over here because the pliers are in the way. So in order to make the pliers not be in the way, I'm just going to roll them this way, right? I didn't take them out. I didn't do anything. I just rolled them from this position to this position. So now it's open over here and I can take this wire on over to the other side. Okay, that's all that movement is. And I feel like a lot of people get tripped up right there. Okay. Okay, so now we have the tail end of our wire, and you can see we've got lots of extra wire here. That's fine. Do a couple of wire wraps. Okay, and then just take the tail end of your wire so that we don't waste any of it, and just wrap it along the surface of this, right? And it doesn't matter what it looks like. What we don't want though is this little piece right here that's sticking out. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in with our cutter tool and we're just going to cut that guy off nice and flush, okay? Just so that we don't make a mess and cut into our fairy silk, okay? Now, this is the base of the component. That's all there is to it. This thing you can put together quick and easy. You can do just regular loops. You don't have to do the wraps. That's all there is to it. We're not going to work hard. We're not going to do anything because the structure is going to come really from the fairy silk itself. But what we have to do with the fairy silk, and I know some people are going to cringe when I do this, we're going to have to cut it in half. And I normally try to use an entire piece of my fairy silk without cutting it, just because I feel like every time I cut my fairy silk, a fairy loses its wings, right? Like every time the bell rings, you guys know, you've been here long enough to know how silly I get. But I don't normally like to cut my fairy silk, but I don't need an entire piece for one earring. It's just too much. It's going to make too big and bulky of an earring, right? The component's just going to be too much. So in order to get 2 earrings out of this, I'm actually going to cut this in half. And not only am I going to cut it in half, but I'm also going to suggest that if you're going to make smaller components, look, I was just talking and I just did it without even thinking about it. If you're going to make smaller components than an 1.5 inches long, then you can actually get away with cutting this into 4ths instead of cutting it in half. Okay, so don't cry too much over cutting your fairy silk. It breaks my heart, but it's necessary, right? And it's still going to be used in a beautiful way. Okay, so to get started, we're going to use a file clip. I know this is so random. And the only reason we're using this is just because I couldn't think of anything better to use. And I have a lot of these on my desk. So yeah, just bear with me. If you've got a better idea in mind, I'm totally up for suggestions. So what are we going to do with that file clip? Well, we're going to take our little piece, our little end of our fairy silk right here, and instead of trying to hold everything together with my fingers and wrap around, I'm just going to clip this on here for just a smidgen of a second. I know that's terrible, right? But it's necessary because now I'm going to take the fairy silk and I'm going to start wrapping around the component. And I only need that clip until I have gone all the way down the component and then all the way back. And when I come all the way back, then I can catch that tail and I don't have to use that anymore, okay? Anything you've got, a binder clip, whatever, you know, whatever you've got that'll clip on, I won't tell on you if you use your desk, you know, if you use your file clips, because I'm doing it too, right? Okay, so you can see I'm just wrapping the entire component with a layer of the fairy silk. And when I get down here to the end, making sure to cover up the wire wraps. Now I'm going to turn around and go the other direction, covering up what I have already wrapped. Okay, and now I'm getting closer to the file clip. I'm going to take that off of there just for a second. And we're going to come around here and I'm going to be able to catch that tail with my wrap and I won't have to worry about it anymore. So that was just temporary, right? It's okay. And you can twist it back around on there, right? Whatever you got to do to get it. You just want to be sure that you get that end tucked in these wraps. It just, to me, it seems easier than trying to go ahead and add your outer wire wrap to this. Then you have to deal with a long piece of wire that you're not using. Yeah, Vicki, a clothespin, anything like that will work. Whatever you've got on hand that you can use to clip it down, that's, you know, go for it. All right, so now I'm going back the other direction. And basically, we're just going to go back and forth, wrapping back and forth. However, you can change this up a little bit because I've got a friend out there. I don't know if she's watching tonight or not, but she makes the most amazing paper beads. And a lot of her paper beads are thicker in the middle and then skinnier out here on the edges. And what she uses to do that, of course, is the paper that's cut in really long strips, and they are cut like a really long triangle. We don't have a triangle here, but you can still kind of achieve the same look just by being mindful of where you are wrapping. So if you want it to be more bulky in towards the center like a paper bead, then just concentrate your wraps more to the center. That's going to chunk up this middle section of your component and keep your ends more thin, okay? Or you can keep it solid the whole way down, back and forth the same. It makes absolutely no difference, but play with it a little bit. That's what's so fun about the fairy silk, is that you can really play with this and change things up quite a bit just by making little adjustments, right? All right, so I am just about completely wrapped. Okay, so there's my little tail end right there. Oh, quilters might have binding clips on hand. I wish I had some binding clips on hand. That's super smart. There's got to be something, like somebody needs to come up with like an official tool, right? An official little something that we use for things like this. Because I know we're not the only ones that are playing with fabric, you know? Okay, so that brings me to this point here, because now we do have an end, and what are we going to do with it while we get our other wire ready? Well, you can just hold on to it with one hand and like do whatever else you need to do with the other hand, or you can come back in here with your clip, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to clip mine for just a second, just so that I can have both hands free. And I'm going to come, and this time I'm going to trim some 24 gauge wire for this part. You can use 24, you can use 26, whatever you want to use, but you want it to be a smaller gauge wire than the 22 that you're using. Or you can use the 22. Just keep in mind that the thicker the gauge wire that you're going to use for this outer wrapping, the thicker it is, the bulkier it's going to be. Even though you're only going to make these wraps in large sections, a large wire is going to add bulk, right? It is going to add to the overall look of this. How long is the whole fairy silk cord, asks Karen. Karen, that is a really good question. And you know what? I'm not really sure, but I think Sarah could probably answer that one for you. And if she is here and can answer it, great. If not, I can find out for you at the end, and I'll let you know for sure, okay? Because I'm not positive about that. Okay, so the 24, 26, whatever gauge you're going to use for this, I'm going to give myself probably, I don't know, I'm going to give myself about 24 inches of this. That may be overkill, but better to have more than not enough, okay? And so now I'm going to take my clip off, and I am going to come in with my 24 gauge wire, and I am going to make sure that I lay it across where the end of my fairy silk is, right? So I'm just kind of laying it across diagonally so that one way or another, I'm going to catch that, whether it is in the beginnings of the wire wrapping here or whether it is in the going back and forth, okay? I'm going to wrap around just a couple of times on the end, okay? And I've got a little bit of a tail there. I'm actually going to leave that for the moment. Okay. So I've just secured the 24 inch, or I'm sorry, the 24 gauge, and those are not pretty wraps. Okay. Those are big, messy wraps. There's space in between them. You can do this however you want to, but I like to keep it with the, I like to keep it messy because the silk is messy as well, right? Okay. So now I'm going to take the wire, now that it's secure, I'm going to take it and I'm going to wrap it like candy cane stripes. You can wrap it tightly, you know, with your wraps close together if you want to, but I like to keep mine wide. I like to keep the spaces between them nice and wide. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way to one end, wrap around a couple times, and then I'm going to go back up the other direction. Okay, just kind of crisscrossing. See how those wires are going to crisscross each other? Okay. So I've made just a little bundle. I made a little cocoon, which doesn't look nearly as much like a mummy since it's blue, but you know, what size is the piece that I'm not using yet? I'll show you and I'll measure it here in just a second. Okay, so I've wrapped 2 directions, okay, and I still have some extra wire left over because I cut myself plenty. Now I want to add some more beads to this. Okay, so we're going to dip in to our Glitz and Glam, and I'm going to pick out, let's see, I'm going to pick out some of these little rondelles just because they're so pretty. Let's see, I like the little bitty white ones. Where are they? Oh, I had them hidden. Okay, so I'm going to thread on one of the little rondelles, and since this is a small component, you can really do each bead one at a time instead of filling your wire up and like then trying to fight with it and you know, figure out the placement. Since this is a really small component, I'm going to do each bead individually. So there's one. Okay, then I'm wrapping around just to kind of lock that one in place. I'm going to add another one. This time let's add one of these. These are pretty. I want this one more over here to the side. So I'm just going to wrap, lock that one into place. Add another one of the white ones. And you can really just place your beads wherever you want to. Sylvia says we need to look at your bracelets before you sign off. All right, don't let me forget. Don't let me forget. Okay, I just want to place that one right there. And you really can just place these wherever you want to. You can add as many as you want or as few as you want. It's just going to add some extra little bling to your little component, okay? So once you're happy with how many beads you've got, just wrap again around the bottom a couple of times just to secure your wire and then trim off. And then we need to go back up here and trim this guy off too. Okay, and then I like to go back in with my pliers where that wire has been cut and then just kind of squeeze, because I definitely don't want that end of that wire to come out. So if you see it and you can see a place to kind of tuck it behind another wire, definitely do that. If not, just kind of push on it to push it towards the inside, if you will, of your component. Okay, so here is our one little component. And obviously if you're going to make earrings, you want to make another one of these that's going to match. We're going to add a dangle to this and an ear wire to this. But before we turn this into an actual earring, I do want to measure this real quick because I don't want to forget. So the piece of the fairy silk that I am not using is 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So 40 inches would be the entire piece. Okay, so that's quite a bit actually. That's a big piece. All right, so we have our little component and we're gonna hang it this direction for an earring. However, I did want to give you some other ideas and some suggestions as for ways that you can use this, okay, other than making an earring out of it. Now, obviously, I showed you the measurement for a 1.5 inch component. You can shorten that up and make it an inch. You can even do little 1/2 inch ones and cut your fairy silk into, you know, maybe 4-inch sections and wrap with your little 4-inch sections, so you could get several components out of your one piece of fairy silk. But instead of using this as an earring component, you could use this as, right, links for a bracelet or links for a necklace. These look absolutely stunning in really long necklace designs. So if you wanted to create several of these and place these among your other larger Jesse James beads, it's just added texture and just an added little some different visual and, you know, a little extra sparkle when you add the extra beads to it, to your design. So there's a lot of different ways that you can incorporate just this very simple component into a ton of different jewelry designs. Oh my gosh. So hold on a second. Someone, Joan, nobody told me it was Joan's birthday. Joan, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you. We do have to go to Lulu's to celebrate. Happy birthday, my dear friend Joan. I miss you. I miss you and Jane so, so very much. I cannot wait to see you guys again. Okay, so let's move on. Let's turn this into an earring, and then let's do one more component, okay? Because I'm just in the mood. I'm in the mood to make some pretty jewelry. So let's add something to this. I'm not really sure. Ooh, that would be kind of pretty though, right? That looks like, that reminds me of like a tropical island almost. I don't know. Then there's just a plain rose we could add to the bottom of it. We could get really funky and fun and add the tassel to the end. Oh, I kind of like the tassel. I think I'm feeling that. You guys, there are new tassels. Did you know? Over on the website, there are new tassels. Yeah. And they are beautiful, by the way. So if you're feeling the tassel, I'm liking the tassel. I think that's what I'm going to add to mine. But you can use whatever you want to, guys. That's what makes this so cool. Let me grab some jump rings here. And we will add a little tassel and an ear wire to this guy, and we'll call him done. I'll make a mate for him when we are finished here. I really like the tassel. But honestly, anything I think would look really beautiful hanging from the end of this. So I'm just opening a 4mm jump ring, and I'm just going to hook that on to the tassel and then hook that on to the bottom of our component, and voila. I like that. I think that is super cute. My daughter would say it looks like a broom. She came to me yesterday. She has a bunch of dolls, like these really big dolls that she has a humongous dollhouse for. And she's always looking to like make things for her dolls. And she was coming and looking for paintbrushes because she was making a mop and bucket and a broom for her dolls. And she took a paintbrush. She would definitely say that looks like looks like a broom. I think it looks like a really cool earring, but that's just me. All right, so add our ear wire to it. That is super, super fun. I feel like it needs a little something extra though. I don't quite know what. A moon? No, that might really make it look like that might definitely make it look like a broom, right? Let's add just a little extra sparkle to the bottom of this, just because you can never have too much sparkle. I'm gonna grab a head pin and let's pop this on there. All right. So I just thread on one of those pretty little rondelles. I just want to add a little pop of Glitz from Glitz and Glam to the bottom here. So I'm just going to make a quick wrapped loop, and then we will move on and make another quick component with our fairy silk. So with our next component, it's a component that we've made together so many times, and never once have we wrapped it with fairy silk. And I don't know why we never have thought to do it, but tonight we're going to do it. And as we're doing it, I hope that you are inspired to perhaps wrap some of the other components that we've created together with fairy silk. Because when you really start thinking about it, I'm just going to add another 4mm jump ring, guys. When you really start thinking about the fairy silk and what all is possible, all it takes is to wrap one thing, and then all of a sudden, I'm just going to hook this right on the front of that tassel. All it takes is just like you have that light bulb moment, and you're like, all the million things that you could wrap. See how that just adds a little sparkle to the bottom? I don't know. I think it's cute. I think it's cute. You can change it up, you guys. I think that is super cutie. Okay, so I'm going to sit this one to the side and let's talk about it. So what component am I talking about? I am talking about this guy. We have made this guy so many times. As a matter of fact, we made this exact component last week, and we never once have wrapped it in fairy silk. And let's do that, shall we? I'm going to make the component real quick for anybody who has not seen me do it, because it's super quick and easy to do. But once you wrap this, then it's like, oh, we could make round ones. We can make triangle ones. You can make literally any component that you can make out of wire. You can cover with your fairy silk and turn it into something completely different. So I thought that that would be kind of fun to do. So how do we get to this? Well, the first thing that we use normally is some 16 gauge wire, and we need our bell making pliers. We're going to use our small bell making pliers. Okay, so I have a 5-inch piece of 16 gauge wire. I like the 16 gauge just because it's nice and sturdy, and I don't have to use, oh, thank you, Pam. Oh, that's so sweet. Yes, my strange little light shines brightly. It really does though. Okay, so anyway, I've got 5 inches, and that's going to create this component. But keep in mind that if this component is really too big, because some people don't like huge components, you absolutely can shorten this down quite a bit. So if you go with a 4-inch piece of 16 gauge wire, you're going to get a smaller component, and you can step down to the 3, so forth and so on. I wouldn't go any smaller than 2 inches though. You're really going to have a tiny component. It's going to be much smaller than this by half, obviously. No, not by half. That's not a, never mind. Okay, I don't do math, you guys know. Okay, so I'm going to come to the very end of my 16 gauge wire. Right at the very end, I'm going to use the smallest portion of the small bell making pliers. Okay, so I'm using the small mandrel, and I'm just going to turn a loop on one end. I'm not going to break its neck or anything. I'm just going to leave it just like it is, that backwards P shape, frontwards P shape, depending on how you're holding it. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the other end, and I want those two loops to pretty much be facing each other. But if they're not, it's okay. We're going to be able to turn those around in just a second. Okay, so we're using the artistic wire mandrel tool. I'm using this very bottom portion. Okay, so I'm using the very last tier in the whole thing to create this round shape. So I'm going to take my thumb, put it right in the middle of that piece of wire. Okay, then I'm going to use my 2 loops as my leverage with my hand, and I'm just going to squeeze those together right on around the component. And what ends up happening is we end up getting this teardrop shape. Okay, so when I take it off of the component, I have the teardrop shape that I want, and my loops magically, because it normally doesn't happen that way, are facing to the back. So when you're looking at the component straight on, you don't see those loops. You only see the loops from the side. If for some reason your loops are out this way, totally fine. Just grab them with your pliers and just give them a twist, right? And put those right where you want them to be. Don't be afraid to position the wire, to position the loops, and to mess around with this. This 16 gauge wire is tough and sturdy, but it's still malleable enough that you can really kind of coax it into whatever shape you want it to be, okay? Now, Because it's 16 gauge wire, it's nice and sturdy. You do not have to put this on the, Steph says math is hard. Yes, it is. I'm terrible with math. So you don't have to put this on the block and work harden it unless you're just afraid that your fingers are really going to warm this up and maybe move it out of the shape as you are covering it with the fairy silk. The reason I don't necessarily care to do that, for one, I'm going to be really, really careful. But for two, as I wrap fairy silk around this, it's going to add a whole extra layer of protection to this 16 gauge wire. And there's nothing that's going to happen to this. I mean, you would really have to, like, I don't know, slam it in a door or something to get the shape out of this once you get that fairy silk around it. Okay. So for this one, let's move these beads out of the way and let's play with something different for a second. Let's try the Harvest Moon, because this is one of my favorites. I love, love, love these colors. And I know a lot of times people think that this Harvest Moon mix is really for fall, but I don't know. I'm kind of feeling summer sunset in here, right? These oranges and browns and these beautiful golds. This is really summertime sunset. So it doesn't, orange and browns and golds don't necessarily have to be just for fall, right? So that's what I'm thinking. That's my train of thought there. And we've got a fairy silk in Waikiki. This is one of from the Destination Hawaii. And it has that ombre where it's dipped in different colors, right? You've got those beautiful golds, oranges, and the browns and the creams. I think it works really, really well with that. So that's what we're going to mix together for this. And again, this is going to be one where you're going to have to this cream color is not part of that. I just noticed this was a rogue piece of white that got in there. Okay, so there's not any white or cream in this one. Well, I mean, it gets pretty light, but that white piece, it was trying to sneak in. Okay, so again, don't cry too much. We are going to cut this in half, okay? But it's necessary for 2 components, okay? So look away if you must. Okay, it's done. It was so quick you didn't even know it happened. All right, so we're going to take one of our pieces of our fairy silk, and I know, sad tears, you guys. I don't like to cut it, but sometimes you just gotta. Okay, so we're going to take our teardrop shaped component and we're going to do the exact same thing that we did with the straight component, but I'm really interested to see what this looks like finished, because even though this was our project for tonight, I haven't actually done this from start to finish. So I really kind of want to see it in the finished form. So again, I'm going to come in with my binder clip. Don't judge me. Use that binder clip, guys. Hook that guy on there, and then we want to wrap around the component, okay? So just take your fairy silk, and just like we did before, we're going all the way around. And actually, you know what? I think I want the oranger color. That's the cool thing about these pieces of fairy silk that are more than one color. You can kind of decide like what color you want to be on the top. And if I start my wrapping with this brown color, then I'm going to finish in this kind of orangey color. And that's what I want. So I think we're going to start with the brown. Okay. So let's start that over again. Come in with the binder clip, clip that on there. And now same thing. We're just going to take the fairy silk and wrap around our component. Let me move that out of the way just a little bit. Hey Jennifer, come on in. We're playing with fairy silk and beautiful Jesse James beads and making all kinds of fun things tonight. All right, so you guys, the fairy silk, I've mentioned this before when we've done fairy silk projects, but I feel like a lot of times we have new people that come in and maybe they are not really familiar with the fairy silk. So first and foremost, the fairy silk is hand dyed, which makes it extra, extra special. Each piece of the fairy silk, the colors are going to be the same. So when you order 2 pieces of the same one, you're going to get the same color scheme, but they each are different because they have been hand dyed. And so they have their own little personality to them. And they are normally kind of, you know, it just looks like this when you get it out of the packaging, which is totally fine, right? When you get it, that's the way that it looks. If you want it to be flat like a piece of ribbon, if you will take a cool iron, I'm talking about the lowest, coolest setting on your iron, and hit this with a cool iron, you can flatten it out and you'll get a flat, more of a ribbon piece. But to be honest with you, I've never actually done that. I always just use it as is because it's so pretty. But I would be interested. I need to do that one day, actually hit it with an iron and see what happens. I do know though that you don't want to use any real heat on this. You just want to use those super, super low, delicate settings on your iron. Okay, so we've gone all the way to one side. We're going to go all the way back to the other side. So now we're just going to wrap back around what we have already wrapped. Okay. And if you flatten it out and make it nice and wide. So Donna says, can real ribbon be used? Yes, of course. You can use ribbon. You can use sari silks. Anything you want to. Like, the sky is the limit. It all is really going to work the same way. I'm obviously just partial to the sari silk, the fairy silk, because it is so beautiful and comes in so many colors. And I'm really kind of partial to the fact that it's hand dyed. I don't know, but you know, you can do this with denim, which looks really cool, might I add. The denim is cool because you can actually fray it up yourself, which is really cool. I don't particularly like to cut on my fairy silk too much. But yeah, the sky is the limit. All right, so we need to capture that end. I've taken off the binder clip. So just want to be sure that I get that end tucked in by wrapping around a couple times. Okay. All right, so I've still got some fairy silk left, so I'm going to go back the other way again, and I'm just using wide wraps for this. You can use little twisted wraps. All of that is going to change up the way that this looks at the end. And just like with the straight component, if you want this to be thicker in certain places, say in the curve of this, you really want this to be nice and thick, then you're going to concentrate your wraps, your layers, most of your layers, to the center of your component, or wherever it is that you want it to be a little bit thicker. Okay, so just keep that in mind, because as long as you've gone over the component in places at least once, then you don't have to re-wrap up here 3 or 4 times. You can take all of those wraps and keep them more towards the bottom 3/4 of this if you want to. Totally up to you. You know, you're going to get different results, like I said, just depending on how you wrap it, where you concentrate all of the layers. And too, when you're working with this, you can kind of change up the colors just by deciding which color you want to start with and how you want to finish. Okay, so speaking of finishing, I'm to the end now, and here is my end. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing to this guy. Since we're using gold for this though, I'm going to wire wrap with some gold. I am going to come in again with my binder clip and like clip onto that just to hold that end in place, and we'll start over here with the wire wrapping. And let's see, I'm going to need some 24 gauge and gold. Let me grab some. I thought I had it right here. All right, so again, I'm going to cut myself about 24 inches of this just so that I have plenty to work with. You can use more, you can use less, totally up to you. You don't have to use gold, you can use silver. I'm using German style wire for this. You can use artistic style or artistic wire, whatever makes you happy. Okay. All right, so we're going to start this out the exact same way used as a tassel, but I have no idea how to do that. Okay, Suzanne, I got you. I got you. Let's chat about that here in just a second. All right, so let's get this guy moving first. I'm just going to anchor that 24 gauge wire, just a couple of wraps, okay, right here at the top. And then just like with the other component, I'm going to go all the way around it in pretty wide kind of candy cane type stripes with my 24 gauge wire. I'm going to go all the way around once. We really got to capture that end. Okay, so now I can take off the clip here and we can capture that end, make sure that we don't have to worry about that unraveling on us. Okay, I've made it to one end, and now I'm going to wrap a couple of times, and now I'm going to go back the other direction. Okay, just again, like with the straight component, we're just crisscrossing those wires, wide wraps. Okay, and then just coming up here, and you can see I'm just kind of willy-nilly with this. There's no right or wrong when it comes to this. I do want to go ahead and trim off the end where I started. Okay, and you can add other beads to this if you want to, or you can just leave it just like it is. There are some beautiful Toho size 11 seed beads over on the Jesse James Beads website that you could also wire wrap around this. That would look beautiful. Okay, so you can add beads, not add beads, completely up to you. I'm going to trim this off. Okay, no beads on this one, but we are going to turn it into a quick little earring, should we, or shall we? And then let's talk about tassels. Okay, we'll talk about the tassels real quick. I hadn't really planned on that. I thought about it and then didn't, but we can chat that out real quick. Okay, so just really quickly, I'm just going to use some jump rings. Okay, I'm going to use, let's see, how do I want to do this? Okay, I'm going to take one 6mm jump ring, thread on this beautiful little tassel. You can use beads, but just to kind of save us some time, I'm gonna avoid the wire wrapping at the moment and just put this together. So I'm going to take one 6mm jump ring, loop it through one of the loops on my component. I'm going to loop on that 6mm jump ring that has our, no, that's not what I want to do, is it? Probably should have thought this through a little bit better. So how did I want to put this together? All right, I know for sure that I want, because I always do this differently, you guys. That's what's getting me a little flustered here. That's not, okay. I'm going to put two 6mm jump rings, then we'll put that other 6mm in the middle. So I'm going to attach two 6mm jump rings to either one of the rings, okay, on each side. And then this guy right here, I'm going to use this as the connection between the two of those. Sorry, I confused myself for just a second. Okay, so that's going to go there. And then I also want to, ooh, did you hear that southern come out? So that 6mm jump ring, that goes in the middle, has our tassel hanging from it. Ideally, I would want that to be a little bit, I want that to hang a little bit lower. So let's pop that off of there. We'll add it again here in a minute. Okay, so basically 3 jump rings, that's going to be your connection at the top. You can go ahead and add your ear wire to it before you close the jump ring if you want to, okay? And then just to give our tassel a little extra length, let's add one more jump ring to it, and then it will hang a little bit lower here. You never know how things are going to go when you do it on the fly, and this one was definitely kind of on the fly, and now I've got tassels on the mind. So I just open another 6mm jump ring. I'm just going to loop that to that center one right there. The only reason I did that was just to add a little bit of length so that now that tassel really is going to hang between the two parts of the two sides of the component instead of way up there at the top. So that's really pretty. I think that turned out really, really well. Okay, so there's idea number two for wrapping a component with your fairy silk. So many things you can do with the fairy silk. All right, so real quick before we go, let's talk about tassels, because you absolutely can create tassels with your fairy silk. And there are a couple of different ways you can do this. The first one that comes to mind is really just a super, super simple. Let's see, what should we use? Let's use a piece of 22 gauge wire for this. So probably one of the easiest ways is to, let's make a loop, shall we? Let's use our bell making pliers. So I'm going to make a loop. Okay, and I'm using the bell making pliers so that I've got kind of a large loop here. Okay, I just kind of looped that guy over the bell making pliers just like so, and I'm really doing this the hard way. I don't know why, but hey, we're just going to go with it. Okay, I'm going to see how my wires are crisscrossed up here at the top. I'm going to take one side of that and wire wrap it. So just kind of created this really impromptu wrapped loop. Okay, and I'm going to trim this tail off. We don't need this. Okay, and you could thread on a bead here if you wanted to. Let's just thread on something real quick. Okay, so just thread a bead onto that. Move these out of the way so you can see a little bit. Okay, now let's do a wrapped loop on the top of this, just real quick, so that we have a little beaded link here. And then very, very quickly, now this is just one way, okay? This is just one way. Me working this up as quick as possible. Okay, ear wire here, okay, at the top. Here's our loop. Take your fairy silk, okay, and just want to put it through your loop, right? So there's one loop through, okay? You can loop through again if you want to. Let's use this short end here. Okay, just kind of thickening up, right? All I'm doing is just taking the ends. It's just one piece, and I'm just looping the ends through a few times, right? Just to make it a little bit thicker. Okay, so down here on this end, I've got two loops. I'm going to need to trim those and make those open. But up here, it's all looped through. Take a little piece of 24 gauge wire and just kind of wrap around here, just like that. This is so on the fly. This is definitely not the prettiest tassel I've ever made, but you get the general idea because, okay, now you can come down here. Some of you avert your eyes. We are going to cut. Oh, did you hear the fairy silk cry? And you've got yourself a little fairy silk tassel where I've cut the loops on the bottom, and you can make this really, really thick, right? You could go through that loop several times. Instead of the loop, you could use a quick link if you wanted to. You know, I just really quick impromptu loop for that, but you could use anything as your circle portion of this. It doesn't just have to be a wire wrapped loop that's large. You can use a quick link. You can use another component, anything that you wanted to, and just several layers of your fairy silk laid over the edge of your component as thick as you want it to be, right? And then just bundle around it with some messy wire wraps, and then you can trim off your fairy silk on the end so that you can make it as short as you or long as you want it to be, right? Depending on where you cut it. And then you can add other dangles to this if you want. So you could add little bead dangles to this. Just add your ear wire to the top. You can even make really pretty pendants out of this, right? That's just one of the many ways. That's probably the easiest. You know, that just came to me really, really quickly. But there are a lot of different ways, but all of them really just involve laying your fairy silk over the edge of something and then bundling it together. That's really the easiest and the quickest and really the most beautiful, because you still get that fullness of the fairy silk, right? You're not taking away any of the structure, the substance, or that beautiful drape of the fairy silk. So there you go. Just a real quick, I would probably trim this up on the end just a little bit so that all of my ends were nice and, you know, the same length. You could even do several of these. One of the things that I really like right now when it comes to tassels is, so we have a component like this, okay, and we lay our fairy silk over it just like that. And we've got one, but then we do another one right here and another one right here. So you fill up the whole bottom of the component with maybe 5 bundles of your fairy silk, so that you have like this whole very full kind of tassel bundle, if you will, right? Can you use a cone on the top? You absolutely can use a cone on the top. There are really no rules when it comes to, you know, creating a tassel. You can top that off with whatever you want to. If you made a wire cone, you can cover up your wire bundles, right? And you're still going to have this beautiful tassel bottom. You're just going to have, you know, some extra business going on up here at the top. You can use necklace ends, right? You can use kumihimo ends, whatever you want to use as a tassel topper. Even some of the bead caps that are available, some of the deep bead caps, you could even put those over the top of it as well. So you really have got a lot of choices when it comes to this. But yeah, a super quick and easy tassel that you can put together really, really quickly, as long as you're not shy about cutting your fairy silk, because sometimes you just have to. Particularly in a project like this, you have no choice but to cut some of that off of there. Otherwise, you're going to have a really, really long earring or pendant or whatever. Your tassel is going to be super long. So, all right, you guys, that's it. We did a lot tonight. We went through a lot of things. Let me flip you around. We'll put one of these earrings on, and I'll hold the other one up just so you can see it. And don't forget, you guys, you can use these components in different ways. Just because we did this with earrings doesn't mean that you can't shorten these up, make shorter components out of these, and turn these into, look how fun that is. I really like that one. I love the tassel on the bottom of that one. I think that's really cool. Super interesting for sure. So there's that one. And then there is this guy, which I additionally really love the way that one came out. It's cool to see it because this one I didn't actually create at all. We just did this together, right? I will, Donna, I won't forget. Just a second, I'll show you my bracelets. So there was that one. And then if we put an ear, let's put an ear wire on this one real quick. The tassel, just so we can see what it would look like as an earring. But as I was saying, the components, you can incorporate these in so many different ways. You can use them as links in your bracelets, use them as links. Oh, that's pretty too. Oh, I really like that. You can use them as links in necklaces and bracelets and whatever. It doesn't just have to be limited to an earring. We do earrings because they're quick and they're easy, and then you can take that and turn it into, you know, a million different things. I used to really get down on myself and I was like, gosh, we always do earrings. Why do we do so many pairs of earrings? The reason is because, number one, earrings are fabulous and fun, and, you know, they're large and in charge, but it's okay that we do earrings a lot, because you can always take an earring and turn it into a pendant. You can always take an earring and make it smaller and turn it into a charm. There are so many different ways that you can use just the earring design. So super cool, you know, just giving you a jumping off point. That's all I'm doing. So you asked about my bracelets. So one of my bracelets, this guy right here, we made this one together. This was that beautiful sunflower clasp and the leather, and just wire wrapped on there. That's a slider. All of this stuff you can get over on Jessie James Beads. This was a project that we did together. Thank you, thank you. And this one, this is my lucky bracelet. This one right here. This is pieces of tourmaline, and it's been faceted. It's just faceted pieces. So if I don't have this on, I'm normally not a person who is like, you know, superstitious by any means, but I have to have this on or the Facebook Live is bad things will happen. I just know that from past experience, if I don't have my tourmaline on, then it, you know, bad things tend to happen. So I wear this one every time I go live. I have to have this on. It's either on this hand or it's on this hand, either one. And it's just on a magnet clasp because I hate messing with clasps. This one is the Mother Earth strand, available on jessiejamesbeads.com, and I just restrung it. It's on stretch. I love stretch. Stretchy is where it's at because I don't have to mess with a clasp. So if I don't have a magnetic clasp or a toggle, then stretch is where it's at. And I just transferred it straight on over to some stretchy stuff, and it's good to go. My favorite way to wear my Jessie James Bead strands is either in elastic stretchy bracelets or as a necklace with some chain reaction attached to it, right? Easy, beautiful jewelry. So there you go. You asked and now you know. What stone are in your bracelet? Which one? The tourmaline, this one. So that's tourmaline. Tourmaline comes in greens, blacks, tans, and beautiful like mauves. I don't even know how to explain it, but it comes in beautiful like rosy pinks and greens that I absolutely love, and I have pieces of it everywhere. It's one of my very, very favorite stones because it comes in so many different varieties. So there you go. Now you know. All right, guys. So this was a fun one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that I've given you some inspiration that you can take and go forward in your week with and come up with some fun creations. You guys, if you make some creations with your fairy silk this week, tag them on the Secret Stash group. Put hashtag fairy silk so that we can all look for those designs and see those and group those together and ooh and ah over everything. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the night. Have a great rest of the week. You can catch me tomorrow at 1 p.m. on the Dress It Up Buttons channel for a crafty buttony jewelry project. And you can catch me again at 11 a.m. on Thursday for another fun project. And I will see you guys soon. Bye, guys.